Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. Okay, now I'm going to talk about recursion. It is actually a recursive method. So you have to learn how to implement recursive method before you need to learn next chapter, tree data structure. So after this learning, you should know how recursive methods work, explore, define, how to decide what are the base case, what are the general case of a recursive method, discover how to implement recursive method in Java and use it into a tree data structure. So what are actually the basic definitions of recursive method? Okay, I would like to say recursive as a recursive method rather than a recursive function because we implement it with Java, and Java we call all the function as method. Recursion's general concept is a process of reducing problem by dividing it into a smaller version of itself. So how? The big problem can be a smaller version of itself is through parameter passing. Because this is a method, the method should have parameter for you to make it smaller than the previous version. Let's say the recursive method has a parameter n with initial value 5. This 5 will be reducing into 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0. So the 0 and 1 is the base cases to stop the function to continue. So the simplest way to say about recursive method is a method that calls itself. It means you define a method with the method name, let's say sum. Inside the sum method, you call the sum method itself. So recursive method must contains base case and general case. Base case is to stop the method to being further executed, while the general case is to continually execute the recursive method until it reaches to the base case. So about tracing a recursive method, I will show you some examples how to tracing a recursive method so that you can understand how recursive method works. Okay, this one is also tracing a recursive method. In order for you to design recursive methods, you should first understand the problem requirements. You must understand what are the limiting conditions for the method, and you must able to identify the base cases. And you must know what are the general cases or the general statement so that the recursive method can continually being executed for further problem. Okay, the popular problem that we can solve with recursive method is factorial. Because in factorial, we can see the pattern. Okay, actually, in order for you to develop to solve problem with recursive method, when you can see there is a pattern in the problem, because the pattern started from a one value reducing into smaller value through by minusing into 1, minus 2, minus 3 for example. So in this case, for factorial, it started with 3 and then multiply 2, multiply 1, multiply 0. So it reduced 1 by 1 step until it meet the base case. Another application that people talk about related to recursive implementation is Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci application. Okay, this is an example how you can write Java codes to implement the recursive method for factorial problem. The method must have return value. Normally, it return integer and at least one integer value to get as a parameter, which this value will be reducing. So let's say the method name is fact. So you can see inside this method there will be a statement that call the function itself. But this function passing new value for the parameter, but this value is reducing. In this case, it reduced 1. Because factorial, 3 multiply 2 multiply 1, so it reduced step by step, one step by step. So when it reached to 0, when the num value is 0, it will stop calling the function by return 1. Actually, how the function, recursive function works, it's actually similar like iteration. It is actually a loop process, but iteration considered less memory utilization. However, recursions, it was slower your program, but it's easier to implement it and simpler. This is example. Let's say the same problem of factorial, but we are not implement it with a recursive method. We use iteration. So sometime I can in exam you will be asked, you will be given a normal function with 4 statement with iteration, normal iteration, then you have to convert it into recursive method, or otherwise you are given with a recursive method, but the question asks you to convert it into iteration. Okay, that's all about basic concept on recursive. Thank you.